One member of Congress who is here for the president's visit is Congresswoman Chellie Pingree.
In fact, she's here with us this morning. Good morning, Congresswoman.
Good morning.
Thanks for coming in.
Absolutely.
So what exactly are you expecting to hear from the president today?
Well, you know, think about it as the president talking to the entire country about the parts of the health care bill with Portland, Maine as a backdrop. You know, he's here to talk about the bill, to get people a little bit further in understanding. You did a good job of summarizing some of the key points in the bill, and if there's one thing the president does really well, it's sort of talk through the stories. Here's how it's going to affect you. Here's how this is going to work, and answer some of the contentious questions. You know, you have a big debate like this. You're dealing with 17% of our economy. As you can see, there was a lot of sparring back and forth, but there's also a lot of sound bites, myths, things that we have to work through and get to the next stage and say, okay, how's it going to affect me? What will my business get? How does it help my kids? All those questions. He'll be talking about all that.
Okay.
It's law, obviously, now.
Yep.
Why do you think the president feels like he needs to go out and kind of still sell this in a kind of a campaign-style tour, though?
You know, more than anything else, I think because it was a contentious debate, because much of the country is still sort of saying, wait, you know, is there something bad in here? Is there something I have to worry about? And it's a lot of change. And I think the president understands that if we're going to change some big problems in our country, deal with some of the highest costs of health care in the world, get our economy moving again, he has to be actively involved in the conversation and debate, and he's really traveling around the country doing that. I think it's great.
But why not do more of that before the bill was passed into law than to, you know, there's been quite a bit of criticism from, you know, some fellow members of the Maine delegation. Senator Snow, one of her big criticisms was, why are we pushing this through so fast? So the question is, why not go out and sell it to the country? If it's such a good law, go out and sell it to the country so that there's more of a consensus before it's passed into law than to rush it through and then go out and try and convince people.
You know, it's a fair question, but I look at it, yeah, I got elected to the legislature in 1992 and started working on health care reform here in the state of Maine. I've been in Congress for 15 months, and it's all we've talked about, you know, going back and forth, trying to build consensus. I think the president tried very hard in the beginning to bring on all different groups and parties. At some point, it's just hard. You got to move the bill forward, you've got to start to implement it, and then you have to say to people, well, so now how do you feel? We're closing the donut hole. We're including, you know, your kids. We're getting rid of denial for pre-existing conditions. You know, now how do you feel? Sometimes debates like this, there's such huge change that I think you can't build complete consensus beforehand. People talk about Medicare and Social Security, how hard that was to pass. I mean, today you couldn't take Medicare away from people or Social Security or those important safety nets, you know, ever, because we've come to understand what an important part of our system and our healthcare system and our economy they are. So, I mean, I think it's a fair criticism. A lot of people thought that the president should have been more involved, but honestly, I think some of these things are so contentious that until you get them done and people really stand back and say, okay, what's in the law? Not what do I want to change? What do I want to fight against? You know, now it's law. How's it going to affect Maine? And frankly, Maine is one of the best states to start working on this because we've done so much healthcare reform. We have a lot of infrastructure. We have a lot of, you know, small businesses that are poised to take advantage of it, and I think we can really move ahead here quickly.
All right, so much more we could talk about, but that's going to be the final word. All we have time for. Thank you.
Glad to have you here.
Tickets too.
Oh, it was amazing.
Midnight.
I know. I went by. People had driven down from Holton and Madawaska and all over the state, and they stood out in the rain. They were ready to go.
Yeah. And speaking of this visit, now we heard through your office that the president was coming. And why did he pick Portland? Why didn't he go north, or maybe in a more conservative area of Maine, maybe to help sell this? Or why Portland?
You know, I have to say it's a mystery to all of us. The president makes his choices based on whatever reasons are important to him. I think he's traveling around the country to be in diverse communities. Maine is actually a great place because our state legislature has already moved very far down the road of health care reform. We're ready to go with the infrastructure to implement this bill, and I think he wanted to talk to a place where he can really sort of take the conversation perhaps one step further.
Do you think it had anything to do with our Maine senators not supporting this bill?
You know, I don't really think so. I actually think that the president is anxious to work across the aisles on this, on anything in the future, and, you know, the more he can bring people into the fold in the long run for the next piece of legislation, I think he's here to kind of keep making sure we all work together. But I have to tell you the truth, I'm not exactly sure if there's, you know, anything behind the scenes that I don't know about.
And a lot of people still having questions about exactly what this bill entails. Tell us a little bit if you think, what he's going to be talking about, if you have any idea.
That's one of the great things about the president is he is such a wonderful explainer. He's got a great way of talking about things. I think he's going to tell people about the Medicare provisions in this bill, making sure they understand that we're closing the donut hole, that seniors get a rebate this year. I think he's going to talk about a lot of business credits that go to small businesses, which is huge in our state. We have so many businesses that can take advantage of it. He's going to remind people that your child can stay on your plan until you're 26. What I think has to happen after a very contentious debate like this, where all kinds of things get thrown out, is we have to have a real conscious conversation about, hey, there's some great stuff in here. Here's why you're going to want to be taking advantage of it. Here's how it's going to work for you. And nobody does like that like the president. And having him here today is going to just put a lot of focus on a real conversation about the policy and the bill and how it's going to work for you.
And so, speaking of that debate, I mean, has the tone kind of surprised you? I mean, this is rivaling, or maybe even more than abortion, gun control. I mean, this has been crazy and out of hand in some areas.
Well, it's been a tough debate in many ways, especially at the national level. I mean, I'm so glad to come from Maine, where we've worked through a lot of these things, the prescription drug fight, bringing health care reform to the state. People here are actually, I find much more supportive than they are perhaps than some of the, people who are standing outside the Capitol when we were taking on this bill. But it's true. It's been a contentious debate. It's 17% of the economy. This is huge change. And everybody's got, insurance companies don't want to change, pharmaceutical companies don't want to change, and everybody's been pushing on this debate.
Speaking of contentious, the Maine Republican Party issued a public letter about the president's visit. In it, they mention you and the health care bill party. That's a surprise.
Yeah.
And party chair Charlie Webster writes this. You're going to check it out right now. Congresswoman Chellie Pingree has been a loud supporter of this bill, but admitted on a local radio program that she did not know if it was even constitutional. Your response to that?
Oh, yeah. I think that was actually Ken and Mike first morning, pre-coffee after we passed the bill. I mean, basically every bill. You'd be amazed how many bills go through a constitutional challenge all the way up to the Supreme Court. So, I don't sit on the court. I don't know what they would decide, but I can guarantee you there's never been so many lawyers combing through this bill in the House and in the Senate, and I believe every provision in it is constitutional, and it's great.
There's already been some changes already. Do you think this is right now a done deal, or do you expect some more changes happening in the future?
Every time you pass a big piece of legislation, you think about Medicare, Social Security, it's a long, hard fight, and then you start to implement the bill, pass some of the rules around the bill, and there will be lots of tweaking and changes. And many of us, honestly felt like this bill could go further. I mean, this is a first step in the door. Look, Maine is a state where a lot of people think we should have single-payer health care reform. Even our docs have said that in their own polling. So, there's a lot of support for doing even more. But again, if we didn't do something to start cutting the costs in health care, really getting more people covered and insured, helping our small businesses, we would be in big trouble. So for me, I wouldn't be surprised if down the road we add more or work through more or deal with some of the challenges. But I think it's a great first start.
One last thing, 5 seconds. You're going to get some time on the podium and the mic today?
I'm not in the mic today. I think the president's going to have a diverse group of people, but I'll definitely be saying hello and thanking him for coming, and it's going to be a great day.
That sounds good.
Exciting. Thank you for waking up with us.
Absolutely.
We appreciate it.
Congresswoman
We'll
Chellie
see you
Pingree.
later.